Welcome everyone to Real Talks One podcast. Today we are going to discuss about a very interesting topic, namely a lot of Indians becoming CEOs of multinational corporations in the US, and this has been sparking a lot of debate from almost a decade when Satya Nadella took on the reins of Microsoft as the CEO way back in 2014. Shortly after, Sundar basically became the CEO of Google, or Alphabet as it is called now. So, in one way, if you see, this has actually broken a glass ceiling whereby only Americans, mainly whites, used to get the CEO positions in larger multinational companies, and like Indians backing up that position basically creates a sense of pride in many of the Indians, and it's a good moment for everyone. So if you see, now the situation is such that whether it is IBM, whether it is Adobe, and several other companies, all have CEOs which are actually Indians. In fact, if you remove the CEO role and look at CXO and VP positions, you will find innumerable number of CXOs and VPs who are also of Indian origin. Even Nikesh Arora used to be chief business officer at Google much before I think Sundar was the CEO, and even he was, I think, the uh, top guy in SoftBank as well. I think he was the CEO of one of the funds as well, if I'm not wrong. And then we are also aware of Indra Noori, who used to be the CEO of Pepsi for a longest time. So there are so many examples now that people kind of leverage, but I think the game definitely changed when the trillion-dollar companies, which are now trillion-dollar companies, basically both Google and Microsoft, when they got Indians as their CEO. So I think that definitely means something, because both these companies are, like, Microsoft is close to $3 trillion, whereas Google is $2 trillion now. Both of them have had successful tenure for several years. Like Satya Nadella completed close to 10 years, and even Sundar Pichai is also like been the CEO for at least 4 or 5 years now, I would say. And throughout their tenures, if you see, the company's valuation has increased rapidly. Like I remember 10 years back, Microsoft was not even a $1 trillion company. Right now it is $3 trillion, so the growth has been immense. Same is true for Google as well. So in those terms, if you see, they have definitely increased the shareholder value. Companies have done incredibly well, and to the broader perspective, it is good for the ecosystem that now Indians have top positions in these companies. Shortly, I saw there was a lot of debate around, we should be proud, and then some people started making fun that these people were successful because they were in America, they probably studied in the US universities, and they are most likely American citizens, and that is why they became the CEOs, not necessarily Indian. So we should not be proud, and if they were so good, they should have come back to India and build those companies there. So this argument is quite flawed, I would say, and it's not the reason, because I am also in the US and I am also an NRI, and I'm stating it from that perspective. But the fact of the matter is that the Indian government doesn't allow dual citizenship. So even if I wanted to remain Indian, but I want to stay on the US soil, I have to acquire US citizenship. The moment I acquire US citizenship, I no longer will be Indian citizen, and I have to acquire OCI actually. So it's more like a legal issue rather than nationality issue, I would say, because if I were to acquire Canada citizenship, USA has no qualms in that. I can still have a Canada passport and US passport, so I can be dual citizen. Or if I were to do that with the UK, I can still be dual citizen as well, right? But India doesn't allow that. So that's one technicality that we should all know. So most likely, if these folks, even though they acquired US citizenship, which is correct, If the Indian government would have allowed them to continue to have the Indian passport as well, they would most likely would have been dual citizens. But Indian government doesn't allow that, so that's one part. Second part is we should not never forget that these people are not ABCD, or these were not born to Indian parents who had immigrated to the US and they were born and brought up in the US. These folks actually did their undergraduate, all their formative years in India, studied there, got their initial primary education. In fact, they even did their undergrad in India, and then they basically came to the US. So it cannot be said as entirely true that they have no connections or roots to India. They are at least Indian origin. So that part has to be given. But the second part to the problem, saying that they became top managers, CXOs or CEOs or VPs in multinational companies here in the US, had they been in India, they wouldn't have risen to those levels. There is some element of truth to this argument as well, because one, if a company is a multinational company, especially a US based company, why would they hire a CEO in India, first of all, where their headquarter is not based, right? So those CEO positions would be far and further in between if they were hosted in India, because India could be a market, but that's not a headquarter of most of the multinational companies, right? So most of them are based out of in the US. So if I were to just talk about top 10 companies in the world, I would say at least seven of them will be in the US, right? So if the companies in the US, they're not going to open up a headquarter in India. So of course, if you have to be a CEO of a multinational company, you got to be in the US. That's one. And Second thing is, if you see that India, at whatever we may say, wherever it has reached, even today, we know, and you can see a couple of other podcasts that I had talked about the development standards in India, the per capita income, cost of living, and the overall infrastructure that India has, and the capital flow that India has, or even the VC ecosystem or the startup ecosystem that India has. It is nowhere equal to USA, or even closer to China. So it is very difficult to build a company such as Microsoft or Google or Meta from India, because the ecosystem is risk averse, and neither do we have that kind of capital, nor we invest very heavily on research and development. So there is a very high likelihood that we cannot produce those kind of companies. That doesn't mean to say that Indians are not innovative in their own right. I mean, you do have service companies such as TCS, Infosys, Wipro. They are all headquartered in India, and they are doing phenomenally well. They have been there as poster childs of India, and they did business process outsourcing. They innovated that concept, and now pretty much all big companies do that, right? So that's also innovation in its own end. But we don't have product based innovation as we see here in the US, in Indian, and you can look into that perspective. I have made podcast with respect to that as well, that why we do not produce such kind of companies in India. The fact of the matter still remains that we should still be proud, because back in the day, when I came to the US, you never saw Indians as the CEO of these tech companies, right? These tech giants who used to rule the world. And When Satya Nadella and Sundar Pichai basically became the top level managers in these companies, it basically opens up gates for other Indians also. In fact, even in the whole American CXO world, now it is kind of common for them to see Indians in that CXO position. That's not true for other nationalities such as, let's say, Chinese, or which is another very major immigrant population in India, right? You don't see any Chinese CEO of US multinationals, but you see Indian CEOs, and that too of two very powerful, very big trillion-dollar companies. It's very, very rare to see that. So it creates a kind of a cloud. It also gives, you know, uh, opens the door for other Indians who are already in several VP or CXO position to basically back CEO positions. So it's kind of breaking the glass ceiling, to be fair. So that's definitely something to be proud of. But yes, we should still not forget the fact that these people wouldn't have gone to that CEO position had they been only in India, and wouldn't have come to the US. So that's also a fact, for the reasons as I said, that these companies are US based and their headquarters are in the US. So there is no way they are going to hire a CEO sitting out of India. So that's that. So I think crux of the matter is that US does give people the opportunity to rise to the top, as has been proven by these people. Again, Indians are in a huge number, 1.4 billion population, and lot of Indians are overseas. Many of them are NRIs. I think US has the largest population of Indians outside of India, I would say. Close to, I think, 30 to maybe 25 to 30 million Indians are here in the US. And given the sheer population of Indians that are there, and most of them come on H1 visas, mean they are like educated. They mostly work in the tech industries. I would say if they would have spent 10, 20, 30 years in the US, there is a high likelihood that they'll start going on to senior level positions, and some of them will crack CXO positions, which we have seen as an example. Another point that we need to note is that now that this trend has become, we have seen even more companies broadly, as I said, like Adobe or Mastercard or even IBM, whose CEOs were nominated as Indians more recently. And then there would be other companies also, which I may not know, or I'm not sharing those examples here in this podcast, also have Indians as their CEOs. So another point I wanted to make is you would see a lot of Indian founders of different companies. So there are a bunch of companies in US which are startups that have been founded by at least one Indian founder, and they are even more than like the number of CEOs that are there. So starting a startup, having a founder as Indian and being a CEO as founder, are two different qualifications altogether. So to become a CEO of a multinational company which is well running, profitable, and have the size of like $1 trillion is a completely different skill set to building another startup where a founder could be Indian. So there are a lot more Indians who are startup founders for startups that are, some of them are unknown or some of them may be doing fine as well. But then that's a completely different skill set, and you will find a lot many more examples of startups where Indians have been founders. Some of the names that come to my mind are AppNexus and Nutanix, uh, and a bunch of others, like where Indians became the founder, or Pure Storage. There are a bunch of other companies as well, which have either been acquired or have done very well. And some of Indians are very prominent in the tech industry as well. Like I know some names such as Thomas Kurian, who used to be president at Oracle. I think now he's the CEO of Google Cloud. And then NetApp also had. I think another Korean brother, I forgot his first name. He's, I think, also the CEO or the president there of AppNexus as well. Sorry, NetApp. I forgot the name. It is NetApp, not AppNexus. So there are many Indians who are in very key positions or top positions, either like CXOs or senior level vice presidents and things like that. So overall, what I would say is that it's very good to see Indians taking up these top positions. It definitely inspires a lot of people, both in India and outside India. And fact of the matter is that Indian IT export is roughly pegged at $180 billion a year in the last year in 2023. And if you see, most of these exports are towards US, or you would see that many of the companies, the startups that are funded in India and are being run in India, are also being funded by US vice, VCs actually. So either which way, whether either you're selling to US customers or your company has got funding from the US, so that's still US investment, even if it is based out of India. And moreover, I think Indians are the biggest community that does the biggest, highest amount of remittance back into India. And I think that remittance amount for the last year itself was about $120 billion. So you can understand there is an outsized contribution of Indians, whether they are uh, through the IT export that people sitting in India that are doing, or people sitting outside of India and sending those remittances back to India at the tune of like $120 billion. So that's almost like free money for India. It brings very precious dollars. And similarly, the whole Indian IT industry also brings in another $180 billion to India. Both have its own value, but I wanted to showcase that overall Indians across the world would be less than, I would say, 100 million in total, and their contribution is close to $120 billion, whereas Indians in IT industry in India would be another, I would say close to, in total, they may employ a sizable chunk of population, and they are generating another, 180 billion. So it's kind of hand in hand, right? And at least people who are in India generating this value, they're benefiting from it. But the NRIs who are sending back the money is basically the savings. They're not using the infrastructure, or they're not leveraging the services of India, but then they are still sending the money back to India. That is like thinking of like, it's not a donation. I would not say it's donation. They would be still be investing in some infrastructure funds or in the banks or things like that. All I'm trying to say is that they're still bringing the foreign exchange without leveraging the services of India, whereas people sitting in India are using the services of India, and then they're producing that kind of returns for India. So that's a kind of a comparison. So I would say people building in India, building startups, becoming CEOs in India are good. People becoming CEOs, building startups outside India are also good, and both of them are contributing to build India. It's not only the Indians sitting in India, but the Indians sitting outside India are also contributing, even if they are no longer Indian citizens, because as I said, it's a technicality, not necessarily the thought. And I would say that we are becoming much more global nowadays. So these physical borders don't mean much. Most of the companies nowadays work in a distributed fashion. They have multiple geographies where they are located. So I think this notion of like, unless you have the Indian passport, only you will be called Indian. Uh, our DNA is Indian. We were born in India, and we are from Indian ethnicity. Our thought process, our values are typical Indian middle class values. So that nobody can take away from us, no matter where we are, whether what language we speak, etc. Doesn't matter. So I think this is a fair point that I wanted to make, and I wanted to nip this topic in the bud. That we should definitely be proud of the achievements of all the people that are there, whether they do that achievement in India. Like for instance, when both these Bansals, whether it is Bunny Bansal or Sachin Bansal, built Flipkart, one of the largest startup in India, and the biggest sale that they did to Walmart in 2018 for $22 billion is a big achievement. Similarly, like all the big startups that are being built, whether it is Paytm or Ola, or whether it is Misho and other startups that are being in India, they're doing great. Whether it is Phone Pay, all of them are doing great, and that's wonderful that they are creating services. But similarly, a lot of product companies are being built out of US as well, where a lot of Indian founders have built several startups, and even that is basically great as well. And now we are more recently in the last 10 years, we have seen Indians becoming CEO of top companies such as Microsoft and Google. That's also to be praised, and we should be very inspired and happy that our glass ceiling has been broken, and now more Indians can look up to becoming CEOs and aspire to become CXOs even in top companies and run the show. If anything, this demonstrates the management capability and the execution capability at the top of some of the Indian people that are there, and it creates a very good like positive validation for everyone, because you need to showcase people examples. Okay, show me where you have done well, or how you have been successful, and things along those lines. With that thought, I'll leave the day today. I hope you're enjoying your time, and do write to us. Do let me know what are the other topics that you would like for to discuss, and please take care of your health. Share it, subscribe it, like it. Let me know if there are any topics that you would like to cover. I hope you are enjoying your time. Winters are coming, to eat well, sleep well, exercise, spend time with your family and friends. Till then, take care.